The Senate is convening this morning. They believe sometime Saturday afternoon is when the actual vote of the Kavanaugh nomination will occur.
Judge Kavanaugh should be confirmed on Saturday.
It looks to be a product of an incomplete investigation.
Heidi Heitkamp now says she's a no.
There are some red state Democrats who have a really terrible decision to make. They can go and be complicit with a process that has been fraught with hysterics.
But there are 4 remaining undecided senators. 3 of them are Republicans, and one of them, Joe Manchin, who is in a tight race in West Virginia.
Nearly 300 people are arrested as anti-Brett Kavanaugh protests rage on.
Democrats have been trying to destroy Judge Brett Kavanaugh. He is an incredible intellect, an incredible person, an incredible talent.
All right, Lady Gaga, by the way, will be starring in A Star is Born. She'll be playing the woman, Barbara Streisand.
Opposite Bradley Cooper, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how that's going to go.
That's a Lady Gaga song.
Right, that's Lady Gaga.
Is that why you're saying that? Okay. Huge weekend. We could possibly get a vote.
Yes.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon, likely. You know, it all turns into Senate procedure at this point. We're going to get to the timeline on that. But that's all the political folks in Washington.
Right.
We also have Steve Doocy. He's down at the Villages with the folks. You know, he's got a new book out. He's out talking to the people about it. Steve.
That's right. Thanks very much, Pete. Yep, I'm on a little book tour over the next couple of days. Going to be here at the Villages and tomorrow in Tampa and the day after that down in Naples. But the folks at the Villages are excited to be on Fox and Friends. But so many people showed up. Then you go over here. And the people over here who have the really bad lighting. Anyway, all these folks are here today to talk a little bit about the things in the news, and they want to talk about, okay, crowd participation. Who's ready for a vote on the Supreme Court thing? Okay, final question. Who thinks he should get in and be the next justice on the Supreme Court? Okay, so Brian, Ainsley, and Pete, that kind of takes the temperature of the Villages. It's not only 72 degrees, but people are a little hot on what has happened in Washington, D.C. And coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk to some of these people who have had mimosas, and I know it's a little early. But anyway,
Listen,
it's Friday, right?
Well, no, when my parents retired, they said, Steve, they said every day is a Friday. We don't even know what day of the week it is.
No. Hey, by the way,
the Villages is great.
And by the way, Steve, so glad you're in Florida, too, because so much what happens with Brett Kavanaugh is going to maybe decide the Senate race as well as the governor race. And anyone who doesn't understand what Florida means for 2020 is not paying attention, let alone with 2018. All right, Steve, we'll check in with you later.
Steve.
3 minutes now after the hour. So we do know this. There'll be a Senate vote for cloture. It'll be at 10:30. At 9:30, the Senate will get together today. So just about a half hour after we're done. At 11 o'clock, they expect to have it done. Now, the question is, if their word gets out to leadership that Murkowski's not aboard, that Collins is not aboard, that Manchin's not going to come over, that Flake is on the fence, do you still have that vote? And, you know, they are holding their cards tight with us. Are they holding it tight with leadership?
There's no way that Manchin's not going to vote yes. He's in a very close race. He's up for re-election. That is Trump territory, West Virginia.
I don't think you can say that. He voted for Gorsuch.
He's definitely going to be a yes.
Here's an interesting part. I don't know if we can put the timeline back up, but this vote for cloture today means vote to end debate or to limit the amount of debate. There are some senators that could conceivably say, I'm going to vote for cloture because I want the debate to happen. I want the vote to happen.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean they vote yay on Saturday afternoon. So these two votes are important. Likely, I think the cloture happens. Then we've got 30 hours of lunacy on the Senate floor, I'm sure, is because that's what it's been so far as a circus. It will likely continue to devolve in that direction. And as you pointed out, Brian, there's 4 senators that everyone is looking at. Jeff Flake. It looks like Jeff Flake is a yes, though. He said if there had to be corroborating evidence in that FBI report, there was none. And so it looks like he's probably a yes. Susan Collins, likely yes. Lisa Murkowski, a big toss-up at this point.
Well, Flake and Collins said the FBI probe was adequate and thorough. So many people are saying they're probably going to be yes votes.
Yeah,
Still
that's why
undetermined at this
I
point. Now, Lisa Murkowski, she's getting a lot of pressure from Native Americans in her state in Alaska. And then Joe Manchin, as we discussed, in West Virginia. I personally think he's a yes. You agree?
I don't think we can know. I mean, he's
going to wait till the 11th hour to do it because he doesn't want to be the deciding vote.
And he's got a lot of pressure from the hard left to fall in line on this. The resistance continues, and he did vote for Gorsuch, but he's been all over the map on issues.
But he voted for Gorsuch. It's like adding in runs with an 11-0 lead.
That's right.
But if you're saying, hey, Murkowski and Collins are out, Joe Manchin's not going to step up. He's not going to deliver. He's not going to deliver Kavanaugh. He would support Kavanaugh if Kavanaugh is delivered, unless he's going to do something he hasn't done before.
What a model of courage.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he's not capable of doing it, but he hasn't done it yet. However, for Joe Manchin, if he does do that and stares down his party and says, this guy's got too much going for him, and 90% of West Virginians support Kavanaugh, I'm from West Virginia, so therefore I'm going to do it. Joe Manchin would set himself up as one of the most powerful people in Washington over the next 6 years, because in theory he would get those 6 years.
Yeah, you don't want it to be about politics, but we all know it becomes that at the very end. Also, Lisa Murkowski did vote for Gorsuch, but voted against Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. Ed did vote for John Roberts, so far has voted along party lines. But a lot of those, as we pointed out, votes were 60-30 votes, where a few votes either way didn't necessarily matter. This is going to be 50-50, 51-49 at the last minute.
Yeah, you think they'll take so they have, when they vote for the cloture, then that prevents Democrats from being able to filibuster.
Yep.
And so then for the next 30 hours, they're going to be debating. Will we be able to see that?
Yeah, of course. It'll be on the Senate floor.
You think they'll take all 30 hours?
I don't know if they'll play a lot on this channel, because it's going to be a back and forth with. You think the rhetoric's been hot already? We're going to play some of these clips. It's going to get hotter.
The Ford team is not happy. Deborah Ramirez team is not happy. They feel as the FBI did not follow the leads that they want them to on the Ramirez team. Deborah Ramirez, is the Yale student who was featured in the New Yorker article in the story that wasn't good enough for the New York Times because it couldn't be corroborated. Now, they now said, I gave the FBI 20 names to follow up on. They only followed up with 2. The Ford team's not happy because they wanted to turn over notes and they wanted additional information and wanted to further explain why no one could corroborate their story. She goes, no one could because they didn't tell anyone. But she did tell Leland, who's the golfer, who doesn't have emotional problems, she had physical problems, who can't corroborate the story, period. So they feel, both those sides feel as though they were shortchanged by the FBI, and so does every Democrat.
Although the FBI produced a report of over 1,000 pages, senators on both sides have had a chance to look at it. And a lot of Republicans, including Jeff Flake, as we mentioned, came out of that and said, there's nothing in here, no evidence presented through this investigation that corroborates, that are mere allegations. And as a result, he has said he feels like Brett Kavanaugh is qualified. Democrats came out of that very same room looking at that very same document with, predictably, some different conclusions. This is Democrats slamming the FBI yesterday.
The investigation was very limited.
This report is blatantly and clearly incomplete.
Our fears have been realized. Our fears have been realized. This is not a thorough investigation.
In your view, is this a fulsome and credible investigation?
It's obviously a cover-up.
Was it ever going to be good enough?
How about Senator Feinstein? I wanted to see a real investigation. If you told us in June about this story, we would have had at least a month. If you told us in August about this story, we would have had 6 weeks. Instead, you give people 6 seconds and you pretend as if this leak didn't come from your staff or somebody that you're associated with. And for Dr. Ford, why she isn't more curious than anybody else for someone blowing her cover because she wanted to remain anonymous. According to her testimony, this is her worst case scenario, but she doesn't even seem curious about what went on. Interesting story now. One of our future guests, who's coming up shortly, Senator Grassley, wrote a letter to Christine Ford's legal team, turn over the communications with Democrats and other Kavanaugh accusers. So I guess he's finding that there's some type of collusion between Dems and Ford, and maybe.
There's been a lot of evidence of that. Some different ways in which there appears to have been coordination. Who paid for the lie detector test? Who paid for the attorneys? All the preparation that went along.
And
with
why
it.
didn't her attorneys tell Dr. Ford that they were willing to go out to California to meet with her. Sure. She didn't know any of that information.
So we've seen part of this debate has been, I think we have been Democrats being confronted in elevators, right? And Republicans being confronted in elevators. And a lot of times they back down.
Orrin Hatch.
Exactly. Well, one senator, though, Orrin Hatch, caught our eye because when he was confronted, he took a bit of a different approach. Watch Orrin Hatch from Utah.
Don't you wave your hand at me. I wave my hand at you.
When you grow up, Robinson.
When I grow up, how dare you talk to women that way? How dare you?
All right, so at first she says, don't wave your hand at me. I wave my hand at you. Like I'm the only one allowed to do that. And then he says, grow up. And she says, you grow up. How dare you talk to a woman that way? Come on.
And then at the end, he waved goodbye out of the elevator.
I know.
Listen, if you're going to yell at me that way, I can't yell back at you. If you're going to point your finger at me, I can't point my finger at you. And then at the last minute, you're going to invoke gender as the reason why I can't point my finger back at you. No, the level of identity politics and absurdity have said, if you're a certain category, you can do certain things. If you're another category, you cannot. That's a very dangerous world to live in. And that's what Orrin Hatch was waving goodbye to. We can stand up, we can take a vote, and we can stand for things too.
Senator Cassidy yelled back. Lindsey Graham fought back, and now Hatch has fought back. That's after Jeff Flake didn't. Jillian Milley, nothing to fight about with you?
I'm not going to fight at all. Nope, I'm just here to make peace. Is that cool?
Thank you.
Okay. We do have a Fox News alert, though, in the story that we've been following out of Chicago. The search for a possible serial killer intensifies. There's now a $10,000 reward for whoever can help get this masked man behind bars. Police say he shot and killed 2 people at point-blank range in a span of 36 hours. The first victim, a 73-year-old man walking his dog. Another killed just blocks away. And the scariest part, as of right now, police say the shooting appears to be random. A lawyer working for Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC gave the FBI documents on the Russia probe in 2016. That's according to new testimony from former FBI official James Baker. A lawyer for the Perkins Coie firm provided documents and devices related to Russian hacking. Coie was a key player in funding the anti-Trump dossier. A spokesperson claims the meetings with Baker was not connected to Clinton or the DNC. The U.S. is paying Mexico millions of dollars to try and stop scenes like this from happening. A plan moving full steam ahead to give Mexico $20 million to deport migrants. It's the latest idea by the Trump administration to help reduce the number of illegal immigrants crossing the border, the U.S. border. And that is a look at your headlines. I'll send it to you.
Thanks, Jillian. 12 minutes after the top of the hour, and Senator Chuck Grassley is here live coming up. But first, Newt Gingrich is going to join us. That's next. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich. He's the former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and the author of one of the best-selling books, the best-selling book, Trump's America. Congratulations on all your success, and thank you for joining us. So this weekend...
Glad to be with you.
Well, thank you. We're glad you're here. This weekend can be a big weekend. We could see the vote tomorrow. We all have lots of questions for you. But first, Kavanaugh, he wrote this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. Why do you think he did that? Did someone tell him to do that, or he just wanted to clear his name?
Well, I'm sure that there was a conversation about whether or not to do it. I don't think he just did it on his own. And my guess is that they've been getting pushback from some of the senators about the tone of some of what he said, and he was trying to find a way to say, look, that was a unique moment in my life. My family and I had been smeared and attacked, and you're right, I was emotional because, frankly, I deeply, bitterly resented my daughters and my wife being subject to this. But on balance, my entire career as a judge has shown that I'm very, very neutral, very focused on the law, and very reliable. I mean, I think that's what he was trying to get across. And I think it's because, when the Democrats failed on attacking him over sex, they switched to attacking him over drinking. When that started to fail, they switched to attacking him over his temperament. And so, in a sense, he's playing whack-a-mole, and he's answering the latest Democratic effort to undermine his nomination.
Mr. Speaker, it's pretty clear. We know who it comes down to. We'll see a full screen. It's Joe Manchin, Lisa Murkowski, Jeff Flake, and Susan Collins. Do you think, how significant is it that both Collins and Flake came out to say that they were pretty happy with an investigation in their own way? And how significant is it that Murkowski didn't and met with women's groups throughout the day?
Well, look, I used to be Speaker of the House, not leader of the Senate. So I'm always a little careful about my good friends across the way in the Senate. But I think it's very important to remember that every senator has the right to change their mind at any time and exercises it on occasion. So I'll tell you, for me personally, I'm going to feel better after the vote. I'm not going to presume I know going in. I'm not going to try to read tea leaves. I mean, I do think, obviously, it was better that Senator Flake and Senator Collins said there's no corroboration in the new FBI report. It would have been much worse if they'd walked out and said, boy, that sure corroborates their story. But no corroboration isn't a yes vote. I mean, my experience, I used to be the whip in the House. If they don't say yes, they didn't say yes. So you have 4 legitimate votes out there that are trying to decide what they're going to do. And I think Senator Murkowski is torn. I think she genuinely wants to be responsive to those women who feel offended, but she also genuinely wants to be responsive to the facts and to justice for a nominee to one of the most important decisions she'll make in her career. And I think that's why you see her going through these meetings. I think Senator Collins had a very clear sense. This is my reading of where Susan was. She had a very clear sense of what she wanted looked at, and a sense that they've done it. Senator Flake, frankly, I think, and I don't think it was necessarily bad, to buy a week, to have a little decompression, and even though you have Schumer and others promptly saying, oh, it wasn't enough, for most Americans, one additional FBI report begins to be pretty definitive. So I think that the original charges have now been pretty clearly debunked. And if I were betting, I think it'll all work out. But boy, I don't know how Senator McConnell feels, but I'd sure feel a lot better after the vote. I don't want to jump in this morning and have a sense of victory yet.
Spoken by someone who's had to count many votes in his life. I know you weren't on the Senate side, but that's a great breakdown of the vote, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, 45 pages of interviews, 1,600 extra pages from FBI tips, all included on that report.
Look at the screen, Brian.
Yep.
Guess who's coming up?
Senator Chuck Grassley has been front and center in the confirmation process. The senator joins us next.
This is a Fox News alert. The Senate preparing to vote on Judge Kavanaugh following the FBI's latest report.
But with a number of key senators still undecided, will Republicans ultimately have the votes?
All right, here to weigh in is the man of the hour. He's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's been front and center through this entire process, Chuck Grassley. Senator, first off, today, we're expected to have the vote at about 11 o'clock. Do you know already how it's going to go?
Our leader said yesterday, this is one of the few times in the United States Senate we won't know how it's going to go until everybody's cast their vote.
Senator, sorry, go ahead.
So we don't, as of now, I don't really know, and I don't know whether anybody else does.
So, Senator, are you talking about the final vote or the cloture vote? Because the cloture vote, will that likely pass? Because that's not the final vote, and then the one that's up for grabs is the big one.
I think you're going to find both votes about the same for everybody.
Senator, how do we not know how Jeff Flake and Susan Collins, Murkowski, and Manchin are going to vote? I know that I just don't understand why they're not saying, are they just waiting to the very end because they don't want to be swayed by their voters? But what more information do they need? We've already got the FBI report. Why don't we know how they're going to vote?
Because they're very personal, very quiet about it, and I think that they want legitimately. I found myself in the same position. You want to make sure before you make a final decision, you want your constituents to know that you're very thoughtful about it, and what might come up new, they're going to wait till the last minute. I've been in that same position, so I'm not going to hold it against them for not announcing ahead of time.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. Murkowski wants to go back and see more. She didn't feel as though she had enough time, and so does Manchin, I think. When you look at this, the Democrats are lined up almost in unison outside Manchin and saying that this is a sham. Menendez uses an expletive saying it's all BS, despite the 1,000 pages and the multiple interviews. Are you surprised that the people that demanded 1 week for an evaluation last week are saying it's not enough this week?
Not only that, but during our last hearing, they said we ought to be having the FBI look at one person, only one person. They ended up looking at about 12 people, but they needed to look at this guy that his last name is Judge. They went way beyond that. They aren't satisfied. They're always moving the goalposts. But I think you got to go back to July the 10th, when Schumer said he's going to do anything under the sun to defeat this nomination. I've been trying to have a fair and thorough and open hearing, and I think we have done exactly that to get everything out on the table. And I've been dealing with a demolition derby on the part of the Democrats, where they've been out to do everything they can to defeat him. And one of the things you would think that they'd be concentrating on is he qualified to be on the court, 12 years on the D.C. Circuit Court, 307 decisions. What is there about this person that he shouldn't be on the Supreme Court? No, his qualifications have not been at issue. Everything that's been at issue is secondary things.
Senator, what do you think about these protesters that are attacking your colleagues in elevators? You have Orrin Hatch and Jeff Flake.
Yeah. I think that it's a reflection of the incivility of American society generally. And I think it's also evidence that people will go to any length when they're encouraged by people on Capitol Hill, like one congresswoman saying, confront them in the restrooms. Go up, and another senator saying, get in their face. We as senators ought to be setting examples for civility, not encouraging incivility. You've heard about the resistance since November 2016. You're seeing the resistance headquarters right here on Capitol Hill, all among Democrats.
Would any of your Democratic colleagues admit that? Any privately, do you say, we've gone too far, the heat is up too high? This never happened to Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor in the hallways. What is it about this moment and the folks on the left that's allowing this to happen?
Well, don't forget, there are some people on the right that get overly ambitious and vicious as well. We here on Capitol Hill have to set an example for civility.
Right, Senator, Chairman, we understand that Leland Kaiser, the former friend of Dr. Ford, felt pressure to revisit her denial and of knowing about the alleged assault back in 10th grade. How do you feel about her saying that she feels pressured by Democrats to change her story?
There is evidence, I can't speak about it because it's in the FBI report, but there's evidence about other people that have been questioned that they were led into it as well. So this is another example of headquarters for the resistance being right here on Capitol Hill.
And you do believe that there's a problem with the Dr. Ford's collaboration with the Democratic Party? What paperwork do you want to see that you haven't seen yet? What do you need to see in terms of the communication?
Polygraph, other things that she talked about to the Washington Post. If she can talk to the Washington Post about it, she ought to talk to us. But let's get back to the legitimacy of Ford coming forward. If she was assaulted, I believe she was assaulted. There's no corroboration that about her judgment that it was Judge Kavanaugh, but you got to take sexual assault accusations very seriously. We don't do that enough in American society, and this, whether Ford is right about Judge Kavanaugh or not, the fact that we had a forum before my committee bringing to the people's attention the major social problem we have about sexual assault, and we don't talk about it, that is at least one good accomplished by Dr. Ford coming forward, even though she wanted anonymity, and even though Senator Feinstein or other Democrats on the committee didn't protect her, her confidentiality.
Yeah, thank you for taking that seriously, Senator.
Senator Grassley,
good luck today.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And many people praising Chairman Grassley on both sides, the way he handled this entire thing. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead.
31 minutes after the top of the hour, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, is going to join us live next.
And Steve is still having breakfast with friends live at the Villages in Florida. Steve, the lights are on. Good morning.
It is beautiful. The sun has come up and the people have come out. We're at RJ Gators, where it is 72, and every day is Saturday here in the Villages. But it's TGIF. Thank goodness it's Fox. We're going to talk with those folks about Kavanaugh, the news of the day, and who thinks the economy is roaring. Coming up next, live from Florida.
Democrats have been trying to destroy Judge Brett Kavanaugh since the very first second he was announced. And he was announced for one simple reason. He is an incredible intellect, an incredible person, an incredible talent. He's been an incredible judge. Because they know that Judge Kavanaugh will protect, uphold, and defend the Constitution of the United States as written.
That was President Trump last night, about 15 minutes from my parents' hometown in Rochester, Minnesota, firing up the overflow crowd at the Mayo Clinic Arena. We'll bring in now to react to that and other things this morning, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to President Trump. Kellyanne, thanks so much for being here this morning. Everyone's talking about this big vote, the cloture vote coming, and the vote that will come on Saturday. You're on the inside. Handicap where we are right now with those key votes.
You heard Chairman Grassley, and I'd like to echo some of what he said, that the process has been thorough. It's gone on much longer and much deeper than any Supreme Court justice in modern history, if not ever. And now it's time to vote. I won't get ahead of those senators who seem to truly be grappling with their decision, but I would point out that what several of those senators have requested has been done. We had Rachel Mitchell from Arizona, Jeff Flake's home state, a highly regarded sex crimes prosecutor, doing the questioning on behalf of the Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee. She then came out with a 5-page memo saying she could never even bring charges, let alone successfully prosecute a case like this based on what she had reviewed. We had the FBI supplement its investigation, and having completed the 7th investigation of Brett Kavanaugh in his adult life, including 2 this very calendar year, 1 completed in July, 1 completed just this week. So all of the questions have been answered. All the people are thumping their chests and stomping their feet on the Democratic side, saying we must have an FBI investigation. It won't take that long. It's critical to our vote. Now they have it. It will never be enough for them. And I'm the first person to have said 2.5 weeks ago, let this woman be heard. We did hear her. We heard her for hours under oath. We've heard from the people she said could corroborate what she alleges happened 36 years ago. But ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that we've also heard from Judge Kavanaugh, 33 hours originally, 1,200 written responses to questions, over 1 million pieces of paper produced over his career, and people who are so angry and chasing down senators in the halls and screaming their heads off as if those men have personally and individually wronged them. They don't even stop and think about the 28 years of public service of Judge Kavanaugh. The majority of his 48 law clerks have been female. All of them are standing by them, and not all of them voted for Donald Trump, the president who's nominated Brett Kavanaugh. And let me just say something about those who are angry. I respect the fact that I live in a country where we can disagree. They're not disagreeing. They're trying to destroy. This is acrimony and anger that didn't metastasize 3 weeks ago. Some of these women have been working on this and marinating in it for years. Just listen to them. Chasing down Orrin Hatch and Chuck Grassley. Did they individually wrong these women? They can't be held responsible for whatever man or men have wronged these women.
And it's pretty
really
clear,
dangerous.
too.
Chasing people out of restaurants.
Right. Republicans are not chasing down Democrats.
No.
It's just the totally other way around, and it has been regardless of the issue. Real quick, you think of this, we're trying to find out how these 4 are going to vote. You brought up an interesting point in the break about Senator Jeff Flake. There might be some type of connection. He's always been a conservative, even though he's been at odds with President Trump. So there might be a connection between the prosecutor, Mitchell, who asked the questions and came to those conclusions that there was a lot of holes in the story and couldn't prosecute Dr. Ford's case, and how Flake goes. In what way?
No, the only thing I was saying is that Rachel Mitchell, the sex crimes prosecutor that the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee asked to stand in for them and pose the questions to Dr. Ford, and she did, and I thought she did a great job in so doing. I'm sure that Senator Flake is familiar with her and her work because he's a longtime congressman and senator representing the state of Arizona. But the most important thing about Senator Flake, and I respect that he is grappling with this decision, and I appreciate the integrity and the dignity with which he has approached this process. The thing about Senator Flake is, one short week ago, he announced that he was going to vote for Judge Kavanaugh, and he did, to get Judge Kavanaugh out of committee. Remember, that vote happened a week ago, and that vote stands. He advanced from the Senate Judiciary Committee, including with an affirmative vote from Senator Flake. What changed is that he was approached or confronted in the elevator by these women who I said, God bless them for coming forward, but also they need to feel that anger toward their individual perpetrators, not toward senators who are unconnected completely from the awful things that have happened to them in the past. But Senator Flake already has made joyful noises about supporting Judge Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. He asked for the supplemental investigation by the FBI, and it was Senator Flake who said no longer than 1 week. And all of that has come to pass. So now he'll announce his decision. I think the wild card here is also Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, a state where the vast majority of the people who voted him into office have said they also want Judge Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court. Do you listen to the will of your voters back at home? Or do you listen to the leaders of a Democratic Party who have been so dishonest and duplicitous in this entire process by pretending they want the testimony, they got it. They want a supplemental FBI investigation, they got it. Has a single Democrat on that Senate Judiciary Committee changed his or her mind based on everything that they've asked for and have received? And let me tell you one more thing. Every way that Donald Trump, my boss, and our president is described by the mainstream media is exactly how the crazy left is acting. They describe him as fuming and angry and isolated and throwing things. He's not that way at all. I'm with him every day.
Yeah.
But the way they've behaved will not end with the confirmation of Judge Kavanaugh. People have seen, they've been watching. It's why there's more enthusiasm now on the Republican side. They're so appalled at the treatment of one man who's had 28 years in public service and an impeccable record to serve in the United States Supreme Court. Search and destroy is exactly the way, not advise and consent.
There's so much hypocrisy. You have women who are getting in their faces, in these senators' faces, and saying, how dare you talk to a woman that way? They're using gender to get their points across, but yet they're the ones that are attacking men in the elevator and yelling at them, and then they're saying, how dare you talk to a woman that way? It's pretty dangerous.
And Ainsley, let's just say, not as women, but as Americans and as moms, terrific that lots of women are coming forward. They want to tell their stories. But
and they need to be heard.
They need to be heard, but why just in the context of this Supreme Court hearing for this man based on 36-year-old allegations that are still uncorroborated to this moment? If we want to help women, sexual assault victims, let's do it. But I didn't see Nancy Pelosi doing much about it when she was Speaker. I certainly didn't hear much about it in the 2016 election with Queen Bee, talking about Donald Trump and all assorted nonsense that was rejected by the voters. In fact, I don't hear about the Hillary Clinton Center for Women and Girls now, 2 years later. The Bill Clinton Center for Women and Girls might be a more interesting endeavor, but the Hillary Clinton Center for Women and Girls, where is that? She's still talking about the 2016 election. The hypocrisy of even trying to help women who have been harmed by the left is so perverted and subverted now. And I feel sorry for these women because they're trying to get satisfaction through Republican senators through a confirmation hearing to the United States Supreme Court that they apparently can't get through their party otherwise.
Through a political process.
All right, Kellyanne, thanks so much.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
All right,
Thank you.
Exciting day. They convene at 9:30. Should be voting by 11. And by the way, Steve is having breakfast with his friends and our friends live at the Villages. Look at all that. Steve, how many selfies have you taken?
That song just makes I just want to do this every time. All right, Steve Ducey's having breakfast with our friends down at RJ Gators, which is in the Villages.
Yep. That's exactly right. And this morning, folks are talking over their pancakes. They've been talking a lot about politics. This guy's from West Virginia.
Yes, sir.
Former preacher, lived there for...
Still pastor.
Okay, still a pastor. Joe Manchin. You know, it's going to be his big question, will he vote yes?
Joe knows he's got to vote, because if he don't, he's politically dead.
Will he lose his election here in a month or so?
If he doesn't vote yes for the confirmation, he will.
All right, there you go. Thank you very much, sir. All right, we got a bunch of other people right here. What do you think of the Kavanaugh thing?
Oh, I think it's getting ridiculous, and no matter what happens, the Democrats were going to make life difficult for this to move forward.
Did they overplay their hand?
Absolutely, I think they did.
All right, let's come on over here, ma'am. Oh, this is Peggy.
Yes.
What do you think about the Kavanaugh thing?
I think that we women think for ourselves and do not just think what the media wants everyone to think. And this is a highly qualified candidate, and we are not sheep, and it's Feinstein and her friends that are deplorable, not we Republicans.
And do a lot of your friends feel that way here at the Village?
Absolutely.
You guys agree with her? Absolutely. Okay, very good. And this guy right over here, Navy man, what do you make of what's going on in Washington?
It's time to vote and let the Kavanaugh family start to heal.
What do you think about the fact, there you go, they agree with you, only about half the crowd, more people like Peggy's comment. What do you make of the fact that in Washington it's become so politically toxic?
Everything,
they just hate each other.
Yeah, everything is personal. And you know, that's not the way it is out here in the hinterlands. We can talk about things. They make everything personal, and it's like they hate each other all the time, and we're sick of it. That's why we elected Trump.
There you go. You know what? Washington, D.C. should relocate to the Villages because everybody here is in a good mood.
Amen to that.
Right?
I feel like I'm in my living room, but better.
Oh, really? That's right. Every morning, that's right. Coming up on Fox and Friends, just about 15 minutes from now, we have such a big surprise. It's either going to be great or a disaster because we're going to get in one of their famous golf carts and go someplace. Where are we going to go? I'm going to make somebody breakfast out of my cookbook. It could be crazy.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that's coming up. Ainsley, Brian, Pete, back to you.
Great.
We don't know what's going to happen,
I know,
honestly. So
I know.
I'll be watching too.
He's going to be making breakfast for one of our viewers.
And that person does not know.
That's right. Listen to this. Every morning, you are so kind to welcome us into your house. And now we are welcoming you into ours. We're inviting viewers to join us as part of our live studio audience here in our New York studio on Friday, October 19th.
This has never been done before. Head to foxandfriends.com or email us at friends@foxnews.com to sign up for your chance to be part of the fun. So wrap it around a New York vacation.
Now, if they're chosen and they live out in California, are you flying them in?
Well, I'll fly them in if they can stay with you. Is that okay?
Deal.
All right, fantastic.
Deal.
All right, meanwhile,
Emails
10
are
minutes before
pouring
the
in
top of
right
the hour.
now,
Yeah,
yes.
Pete, you're out of this. 7 FBI investigations of Judge Kavanaugh, and it's still not enough for many Democrats. What more do they want?
Democrats agreed that the investigation scope should be limited. We did not agree that the White House should tie the FBI's hands.
Nothing.
It looks to be a product of an incomplete investigation that was limited, perhaps by the White House. Democrats agreed that the investigation scope should be limited. We did not agree that the White House should tie the FBI's hands.
That was Dianne Feinstein on yesterday. Well, Senate Democrats blasting the FBI investigation that they asked for into allegations against Brett Kavanaugh, saying it's still not enough. This, as you know, is the 7th such investigation. So what more could Democrats conceivably need? Here to weigh in is the senior advisor to Independent Women's Forum, Andrea Botner. Andrea, thanks for being here. Answer that question. Is there anything more that could conceivably be delivered that would satisfy Democrats?
Hi, good morning. Actually, the short answer to that is no. I really don't think there's anything more that could be delivered. This has been a calculated campaign from the beginning of July. to do whatever they can to make sure that Judge Kavanaugh is not going to be given a seat on the Supreme Court. But unfortunately, I think they're running out of tactics, and hopefully after tomorrow's vote, they will have run out of time.
You know, you're referring to the fact that in July, Chuck Schumer said we'll do anything to defeat this nominee. His record was clear and strong, but they went after alleged assault and then drinking and then temperament. They've used every last one. Then they got an additional FBI investigation. Do you think do the voters see through this and realize it's a resistance effort? Is this just clearly along partisan lines is how you see it playing out?
Unfortunately, I do. And some may say that's a cynical way of looking at things, but I think it's become very political. And the intent of this campaign has become very transparent now. And I think folks across the country are very well aware that they are just trying to continually move the goalpost and keep Brett off the Supreme Court.
You know, as someone who's on part of the Independent Women's Forum, I mean, the issue of sexual assault's a serious one. A discussion's been had with that. But do you feel like women some have been used, others have been made to think they think one way? I mean, how do we have both a fair assessment of Judge Kavanaugh and also an understanding that we can talk about alleged sexual assault as well?
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right. Sexual assault is a huge and serious issue, and victims, survivors need to be heard. But because you're willing to hear or you're willing to come forward, just because you're a woman, that by no means prejudges one's opinion. As women, we need to be able to consider the facts and make our own determination. And I think that's what's gotten lost.
It really has. It's such a great point. Andrea Botner, thank you very much for the clarity this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, well, a big final hour ahead. Geraldo Rivera, Mike Huckabee, Tammy Bruce, and you heard Steve. He's got a surprise that you've never seen before down there at the Villages. Stick around. Don't miss it.